Kodak's engineer showed his boss the world's first digital camera in 1975. His boss told him to bury. That's not a metaphor. Steve Sasson built a prototype the size of a toaster, showed it to management at Kodak's Rochester headquarters, and watched their faces go blank. The company that owned photography, that asterisk was asterisk photography for 80 years, looked at the future and said no. I've seen denial before, never on this scale. Here's the question nobody asks. How does the company that invented the thing you're about to be killed by not see it coming? The answer is profit. Kodak wasn't a tech company pretending to be photography. It was a monopoly pretending to care about innovation. There's a difference. By the 1970s, Kodak controlled 90% of film sales in America. 90%. They weren't worried about competition. They were the market. So when Sasson's digital prototype landed on their desk in 1975, they did the math. Digital meant no more film. No film meant no recurring revenue. The decision made itself. What they didn't understand, or worse, what they understood and ignored, is that someone else would build it anyway. And they did. By 1990, digital cameras existed. By 2000, they were getting good. By 2010, they were everywhere. Kodak watched it happen. Why didn't they pivot? Inertia Legacy thinking. A business model that worked so well for so long that change looked like suicide. Kodak's executives weren't stupid, they were trapped. The film business was generating billions in annual profit. Cannibalizing it with a digital transition meant accepting short-term losses for long-term survival. Most companies can't do that math when the board's breathing down their neck. But here's where it gets darker. Kodak did invest in digital. They launched digital cameras in the 1990s. They had the patents, the manufacturing, the distribution network, everything. Except they priced them like luxury goods and treated them like a side business. Digital was a threat to be managed, not a future to be built. Meanwhile, Sony, Canon, and Nikon weren't carrying a legacy business. They had nothing to protect, so they moved fast, they iterated, they got cheap, and they got good. By 2005, digital had crossed the inflection point. Film was done. Kodak was still selling it like it was 1985. The numbers tell the story. In 2000, Kodak had $19 billion in revenue and owned the imaging market. By 2010, revenue had collapsed to $8 billion. Film sales, the core business, were hemorrhaging. Digital camera sales, the thing they invented and abandoned, were now dominated by competitors. Kodak had become a spectator at its own funeral. Then came the smartphone. In 2007, the iPhone arrived with a camera built in. Not a good camera, not a particularly important camera, but it was always there, and it was connected to the internet. Within 5 years, the smartphone camera had killed the entire dedicated camera industry. Kodak didn't see it coming because it wasn't even a camera company anymore. By 2012, Kodak filed for bankruptcy. A company that had survived the Depression, 2 world wars, and the entire 20th century couldn't survive the 21st. They had $6 billion in annual revenue when they went down. They had patents worth billions more. But patents don't matter if you don't have the will to use them. Here's the dark symmetry I can't ignore. Kodak invented digital photography, then invented the reasons why they shouldn't commercialize it, then invented the excuses for why they were too late. They were the architect of their own obsolescence, not because they lacked technology, because they lacked imagination. The bankruptcy wasn't a failure of technology, it was a failure of courage. Kodak had every tool, every advantage, every second chance. What they didn't have was the guts to kill their golden goose before someone else did it for them. That's the real lesson here. And the irony, Kodak still exists. They emerged from bankruptcy in 2013. They make printing equipment and chemicals now. They're not a photography company anymore. They became what they feared most, irrelevant. A name on a building, a memory of dominance, a case study in how to lose everything by refusing to let go. So why does this matter to you? Because Kodak's story is playing out right now in a dozen industries. Netflix killed Blockbuster because Blockbuster couldn't imagine renting DVDs by mail. Tesla's eating Detroit because Detroit couldn't imagine electric cars being desirable. The pattern never changes. Success breeds complacency. Complacency breeds catastrophe. Every company thinks they're too big to fail. Every monopoly thinks they've won. Every dominant player thinks the rules have changed in their favor forever. Kodak thought that too, until they didn't. The question isn't whether it'll happen to the next giant. The question is when. Kodak invented digital photography and buried it because they couldn't accept a future that didn't revolve around film. They had the vision, the resources, and the first-mover advantage. What they lacked was the willingness to destroy their own empire before someone else did. That's not bad luck. That's a choice. And choices have consequences. Subscribe. Every week we expose how billion-dollar empires buried themselves. And you won't see it coming until it's too late.